39.
Number 1.
39.
1.
38.
37.
36.
35.
34.
33.
32.
31.
30.
29.
28.
27.
26.
25.
24.
23.
22.
21.
20.
19.
18. 17. 16.
15.
14.
13.
12.
11.
10.
9. 8.
7. 6. 5.
4.
3.
2.
1. It's time for mouthwash. Giddy up. Hi, and welcome to the Mouthwash Talk Show, a minty, fresh take on politics. And hey, if you didn't notice in the intro there, hey, we have small talk back. Unfortunately, Mark didn't win his election, but he is back, and he's got some opinions on libraries tonight. I think he used to be some sort of a librarian or something back in the day at DePaul. So we'll have to see what he has to say. I'll tell you right now, I haven't listened to it, so we'll all be hearing it for the first time. I've been busy editing some stuff tonight. So we have a lot of announcements and a lot of things to go. First of all, I want to get a shout out to our sponsor. Here we go. This is Bimbo Bakeries. If you want a job doing Bimbo Bakery stuff, then call Becky Morris at that number. And we thank them for sponsoring the show. And we got a heck of a show tonight. I mean, we have the other side of the story. We're going to the real story, I think it is. And we have Micah Beckwith coming on, and he's with the Hamilton East Library Board. And, you know, there's been a lot of talk about books being in the wrong places and who can see this and who can see that. So tonight we're going to talk about an article the Star had, and it seemed a little one-sided to me. So I thought, well, we'd get straight from the horse's mouth here. We'd get a couple library board people to come on. And, hey, yeah, and guess what? Tiffany's back, and she did win her election. So we have her back. And then we got a big announcement for a rally that's coming up on June 3rd. So you want to stay tuned for that. But I'm going to go ahead and bring on Micah here, and we're going to see how he's doing tonight. Micah Beckwith, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing well, John. Thanks for having me. As always, it's a blast to be on the show, and thanks for all you're doing.
Hey, back at you. You got a little show called Jesus, Sex, and Politics, and you've been cranking out some episodes, and I believe last time I saw you, I was on your show.
Yeah, you were. We were at the Hamilton County live. Well, actually, no, you came into the studio, didn't you? Yeah. So we did a show with you all about what's going on in Mars Hill and how you're standing up to the ACLU, and I love it, man. You're fighting a good fight.
Today we had a real life Breaking Bad. We had an RV move from one of the areas into the backyard of one right down the street from here. So we've been living with the real life Breaking Bad today, RV and everything. I kid you not, you can't make it up. So yeah, we still got a little issues here, but you know what? In Mars Hill, I do see kids out riding their bikes more, which about 3 years ago there wouldn't happen. So we're making some strides. We just still got some work to do. But hey, let's talk about why you're on the show tonight. And then give our folks that may not know you a little background, and then let's talk about the subject. Then we'll bring on the panel.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. So I'm a pastor in Noblesville, a church called Life Church. It's a growing church. We've got 4 campuses: Noblesville, Fishers, Eagle Creek, and Pendleton. And so it's been awesome. If you know Life Church, we just say, hey, we're going to tell you what God says about things. We're going to look at the scriptures and just dive into that, and we get our opinions out of the way and just kind of go right to the word. But if God says it, then we're going to repeat it, and we're not going to let the cancel culture push us away. And I think that's the thing. It hasn't come out yet, but we were voted. The Noblesville Times just came out and said we were voted best church in Noblesville, And I think people like us because we just tell you what the truth is. And I mean, we love you. We don't care if you disagree with us, but we're not going to let you cancel us. And I think that's what a lot of churches and pastors, unfortunately, in today's culture, they try to sugarcoat everything. Pastors think that they're supposed to be loved by everyone, and that's not it. I mean, Jesus, they didn't crucify him because they loved him. So he spoke truth, and he did it with courage and boldness. He did it with love, but he certainly did it with a conviction. And so we do the same thing. So I've been involved in the political battles, and I believe the church is called to be in that fight in America. We were founded on Judeo-Christian principles. Our founders wrote extensively about how important Christianity and the faith of Scripture was supposed to be the bedrock of our liberty and the principles of our constitutional republic. So we gotta get back in the fight, and so that's what I'm doing, and I love doing it. It's a blast.
Yeah, I think you do a really good balancing act because, there's a lot of pastors, hey, we don't want to talk about that politics. What are they talking about? Religion and politics don't talk about both at the same time, but you are a brave man. And you know what I always say? The gospel preaches itself. So you just,
right.
You just stand there and witness and talk about it. And I love a good Bible-based church.
Yeah. Well,
that word is true forever and ever.
That's right. And pastors who say, we don't get political, I always say you put the gospel in a box. If you're willing to say the gospel can't go to this area, you've just put the gospel in a box. And the gospel is boxless. It's boundaryless. It doesn't have any borders. It goes everywhere, and that includes politics. And I see politics as a mission field, just like I would if we were sending missionaries over to India to rescue women from sex trafficking. We do that at Life Church too, but I don't see a separation of those two arenas. They both need the gospel. They both need the freedom of what the Holy Spirit brings. And so we say, hey, we're not going to put the gospel in the box.
Yeah, that's great. I tell people, I said, how many Romans do you know these days? But yet people still talk about Jesus, right? Raise your hand if you're a Roman. No, they're Italians. I don't know what happened there. They're all, so that just goes to show you how that works out. Well, I do see that Lucy looks like she's in the car. We had Mayor in the car show a couple weeks ago. Now Lucy is running behind. As you all know, she has 10 kids. So there's some occasions that she might not be where she needs to be at certain points. And of course, we have Tiffany back. So I'm trying to think what I want to. I think I'm going to play Small Talk because we have Mark Small back. And I've not listened to this, but I'm sure it's going to be from the left perspective. So this will be a good start. And then when we come back, you're going to be on the hot seat and we'll have the panelists out there and I'll be representing the Democrats tonight. So don't hate me. Don't love me. Don't send in bad hate mail. So that's good. So here, let's listen to what Mark has to say. You got 2 minutes. I had to cut him down to 2 minutes because we're on channel 40 now. So we'll see if we can cram it in 2 minutes. Let's go.
Hi, this is Mark Small Talk for May 9th, 2023. We're back. I had to take off because of the election, but let's talk about libraries this afternoon. I was on staff of university libraries for about 6 years. Our job was to provide as much information as we could to people who are using the library. Oh, okay, we're talking about elementary and secondary access to items in a library. Well, you see, you want people to have access to things that are there. Information in society. Now, when you have somebody who advocates ignorance, for example, Micah Beckwith has lately said in columns, don't worry about studying the Constitution from academics. Listen to me, because the academics are just going to try and twist what you know about the Constitution, and you don't need that. People who want to keep you ignorant want to do it for a reason. They want to take advantage of that ignorance. When we were working in the libraries, we always were trying to get people information that they needed, because it's a public library and people need to have information. History is not being kind to people who want to limit or restrict access to items in libraries. One item that Mr. Beckwith was really upset about actually was moved to a restricted section of the library on which he now is a board member. And he got onto that board kind of like in a backdoor way. Other candidates had filed. He got his application in. I don't think he's going to be on there for very long. Here's the deal. When you have a public library, it's public. The surest test of truth is its acceptance in the marketplace of ideas. And if people control that marketplace, they're going to tell you what they want you to think. That is not a free society. Mark Small Talk, May 9th, 2023. Thank you.
Oh, all right. He was a little more animated than usual. And Micah, I don't think he likes you. I don't know. Or
No,
maybe
Mark
your
and I
politics. No,
disagree.
he likes you.
Yeah, no. Mark and I disagree. I think Mark's an idiot, first and foremost. So he doesn't know what he's talking about. But here's what I would ask Mark. Say, okay, Mark. So anything goes in the children's section of the library, the public library. Is that what you're advocating for? Because literally, one of the books that we had to fight over, that was the fuse that lit this collection development policy, was a book that advocated for 14-year-olds to go online and to talk to sex, explore sexual fantasies and kinks, talk about that with strangers online. And so I don't know about Mark Small, but I think that's pretty dangerous when we're telling 14-year-olds, here's a book that encourages you to go online to talk with people you don't know who they are, but about all the sexual endeavors that the world has to offer. So if Mark thinks that's okay, well, Mark's a pervert. Okay, I'm just going to say it right now. I don't think he would defend that, but again, I don't know Mark well enough, but to know what he's going to do. I'd love to ask him, is that book okay? And he either has to say it is okay or it isn't okay. And if it's not okay, then he has to concede that the collection development policy that we put in place because of books like this, and by the way, it did get moved, but not until after a fight, and the library didn't move it at first. The parents brought it up to the attention of the board. The library staff said, nope, it meets all the standards that the American Library Association tells us we need to have. Therefore, we're going to keep it in the teen section. And then we had to fight it again. And so we said, how can we stop books that are dangerous to children like this one from being in their hands? Now, we don't ban it. We're not banning the book. We just moved it from one room of the library to another room of the library. And you can still walk over and get that. If mom and dad want that book for their kid, have at it. You can be dumb. I don't care. I'm not stopping your right to be dumb. I'm just saying we don't want a 14-year-old to stumble across this book, especially with rational parents who say, hey, it's not smart that our 14-year-old is talking to strangers about sexual kinks and fantasies online. And I'm going to tell you, like, that is all we're doing right now. And for Mark to think that you have to have academics teach you the Constitution, here is the Constitution right here. This is actually the Declaration and the Constitution.
Now, is that Micah's version? Is that your version, or is that the real one?
This is actually Mike Sodrell. This is Mike Sodrell's version. He passed this out. He ran for he used to be the congressman down in the 8th district of Indiana, or the 9th district, I believe. But this can fit in my pocket. You do not need academics to teach you the Constitution. This is an easy read, and it's designed that way so we, the people, can govern ourselves. You don't have to have a Mark Small who spends billions of dollars on a degree to say, hey, I'm smarter than everybody now, listen to me. You can do it yourself. That's the beauty of America. You don't need someone spoon feeding this to you. So all that to say, that's my response to Mark's small talk. He is totally wrong, doesn't know what he's talking about. End of story. I'm right.
So you're going to be on there for a short while. Well, while we're at it, I don't know if you know Brad Sawinski. Brad Sawinski. Is there still porn in the Hamilton East Public Library?
I'm sure there's pornography. Yes, I mean, we're trying to get it out of the kids section, but there's certainly graphic images within the children's section of the library that we are trying to root out and say, okay, hey, this needs to be in the adult section.
Yeah, it's all right. Well, we have Tiffany here. I'm going to go ahead and bring Tiffany out because she hadn't been here for a while. We're going to put her on the hot seat. Hi, Tiffany. We've missed you, and we're glad you're back. And you're sort of in this, so you'll have firsthand knowledge of what's going on. But I just, one of the things that caught my attention was when I saw the Star article about. It just seems so slanted and one-sided that I thought, I know some folks that are on that library, and I don't think they're evil, mean, bad people at all. So Tiffany, welcome back. We're going to give you a little minute here.
Good to be back. I'm excited to be back. Thank you.
That's it. That's all you get.
Yeah, I'm excited to be back. If you want to talk about the collection development policy, I'm ready.
Okay. Well, we'll put you back over here. We'll let you get out there.
But I want to piggyback on what Mike has said. I've been on the board for a year, and we did not sit down one day and say, golly geez, what can we do to stir up the patrons, everybody in Fishers, and shake the rug on the nation? It didn't happen like that. There are books in the young adult section that need reviewing. And I always invite people to go to the library and look in the section and just peruse the section. There's a couple things that you'll notice is that most 90% of the young adult section was written in the last 8 years. These are not the books that we grew up with. These books are written, they're written differently. They're written so that children will read them. They catch you in the beginning. There's a big difference between a book that's geared toward a young adult and a book that's geared toward an adult. Because, you know, we've often read books where somebody will say, oh my God, give it 100 pages and you'll get into it. You know, young adults don't have that type of interest in a book. So these books are, most of them are fairly new, written in the last 8 years. And what happened is, as we went through this process, parents would do a request for reconsideration. That's when you talk to the library staff and you said, hey, I stumbled upon this. Could you please review it and make sure it's in the right place? And I don't want to get my number wrong, but I want to say 99.5% of the requests for reconsideration were rejected. And it was pretty much kind of a canned response that said, you know, based on library policies, based on information from the publisher, this book is in the right place. And then we were like, well, let's look at the book. And that's where we stumbled upon Flamer, which it's a graphic novel. So if you looked over your child's shoulder, it might look like they're reading kind of a thick comic book, but it's the content. It's the content. You know, it's boys at camp and it's group masturbation and things like that. And that's not, you know, it's very mature material that's written written in a way to hook young people. Go ahead, Micah.
It explains what semen tastes like to teenagers, just FYI. So, I mean, when we say it's graphic content, it's that graphic where it's like, hey, you want to know what semen tastes like? Well, give someone a blowjob, and this is what it's going to taste like when it goes into your mouth. And that's what that book is for teenagers. And I know it's graphic, and I'm sorry we're on channel 40 in WHMB, but people need to know this is the kind of crap that we are feeding 13, 14, 15-year-olds. And I just think it's completely inappropriate for that just to be hanging out in a teen section of a library. If mom and dad want to give that to their kid, that's fine, but get it out of the adult section.
Yeah,
that's to that point. So we got to this point. So we're getting these requests for reconsideration. We're looking at the books and we're like, hey, there's a gap between what the community is saying that they want to see and what the library professionals are saying. And so it's like the answer to every request for reconsideration can't be that it meets ALA standards. We're putting it where the publisher wants it to be. You know, that's the end of it. And so that's how we got to the point where we needed to change the collection development policy. We brought in 2 sets of attorneys to help us develop the exact right language. We are not censoring books. We are not banning books. We are not hiding books. We're not halting the acquisition of books. If you have a Hamilton East Public Library card, you can check out any material in the library. You have full access to videos, DVDs. What we're trying to do is create a young adult, a child, juvenile section that has, you know, content that's really made for young people. Books that are moved to the adult section, you know, the adult section, adult fiction, it's by author. So it's not like you're going to go to the adult section and you're going to stumble into like anything by category. It's all by author. And on the spine of the book, there's a sticker that says young adult, and then it'll have like mystery, romance. You know, it'll have like the kind of a gist of what it is. So we're not hiding books. We are not hiding books in the least.
So I got a couple questions. Lucy's driving. I want to get to her in a second because she's going to be like the, you know, Batman, the Dark Knight when she comes in here. So did you guys, when you signed up for this, did you realize it was going to be a little bit of this business? I mean, Micah, you probably did, but I see Tiffany.
Yes.
You know how when you see people and they come into board meetings and they sit down and they just vote really fast and they're in and out in like 30 minutes? That was kind of what I was expecting.
I was expecting the fight because I know what the left is up to. It's all about indoctrinating the next generation. And so I think when people like Tiffany and myself come in and say, hey, we're not going to let you just steamroll over the next generation and indoctrinate them with all this crap. We're going to stand up and fight you. They're not going to go quietly into the night. I mean, conservatives typically go quietly into the night, but then they meet somebody like me or someone like Tiffany, and then they really have a problem with us because they're not used to bold conservative leaders standing up and saying, you know, you shall not pass. You know, it's kind of that Gandalf moment, right? I'm a Lord of the Rings nerd. Okay, I get it. I'm sorry, but it's like you shall not pass. We're not going to let you go. We're gonna defend what we believe to be right and true. And if you want to defend a book that tells teenagers to go online and talk about sexual fantasies and kinks with strangers, have at it. Go for it. I'd love to hear your defense, but I think 99% of America is going to think you're a crazy pervert.
Yeah, and that's what and Lucy's on audio only. I want to probably this will even be better. I'm going to ask Lucy to join in here. I think if she can, Lucy, go ahead and unmute and stay. Don't. I just want to hear your voice, like you're the voice of reason.
Voice of reason.
Yeah, there we go. That there explains everything in life. There's no voice of reason even out there that we can.
Here I am, voice of reason.
Yeah, that's right. You know, she said she was audio only, so I know she's driving and does her best to get on the shows. But I have more questions. Now she's totally gone backstage, so maybe she's home. Maybe she's home and she'll come in her studio and she'll have some questions for us. So some people would say, "Hey, what's the big deal?" They can get on their phones. They can get on their phones and they can find, get any kind of porn they want on their phones. And I have a reasoning for that. But what I'm going to ask both of you that question. So whoever wants to go first. So,
well, I mean, are you advocating for no standards whatsoever? I mean, what's the big deal? I mean, there's evil in the world. We might as well just let it into our library, right? Like, what's the big deal? I mean, there are people who are advocating for a standardless library, and I think anybody who's a rational person who has kids, especially parents, would never agree to having no boundaries or safety put in place when it comes to the children's section of the library. It's almost like they want to say, hey, like does the public zoo operate this way? Do they not put up boundaries to keep people safe when they're looking at the lion exhibit, or when look what happened with Harambe over in the Cincinnati Zoo, right? Remember that a kid got through the railing and fell into Harambe's den, and that ended very poorly for a lot of people, including Harambe. May he rest in peace, right? Like they had to kill him, and I think this ape they had this huge thing with where they were like, how did this happen? Where were the boundaries? And how did this kid get in there? And I think any government institution has to have boundaries and safety standards. And I think what the left is advocating right now is they're saying, we don't want any safety standards, no boundaries whatsoever. Again, nobody's banning books. We're just saying, hey, these books that are relatively inappropriate by some people's standards, and again, it's a public library, so we get people on the right that come to us and say, we want this book out of the library. And we say, no, we're not going to get it out of the library. We're not going to ban books. But hey, here's a good compromise so everybody can play in the sandbox. Why don't we just take this book that does meet this high bar of sexually explicit content? We're not getting rid of books that just have some cuss words in them. There's a high bar of content that's harmful to minors, and it's been defined by law for 20 years. When it hits that standard, we're going to say this is going to go over in the adult section. And if mom and dad, if you still want your kid to have it, you can. But now we're just making sure that in the teen and the kids section that we are putting some boundaries and standards in place. And again, it's super rational. This is an easy compromise, but the left, they do not like this because they want to push this nonsense and this crap down every child's throat, whether you are right, center, left. It doesn't matter. If your kid is in the library, they want them to have all kinds of this nonsense that they just want to indoctrinate kids. Look what's going on in public schools right now.
Yeah, so, I compare it to a little bit like secondhand smoke. The other person's not smoking, but they're getting the effect of it. Hey, Tiffany, I'm getting some feedback on your mic. I don't know if you can turn it down or there we go. I think that's good. Yeah, that's better. Whatever you had going on there. Oh, real quick. I know that we want to, I know when we talked off air, we talked about this question. Are you speaking for the library board? And what is your answer for that?
So Laura Allerding is the president of the board. I'm giving my opinion as a voting member of the board. Certainly people on the board have different opinions because it was not accepted unanimously. So there are different opinions out there, but that's mine. I'm a voting member. I stand by my votes. One of the things I think that is interesting as we have this conversation about the library is no one wants to talk about how we've been reviewing the books, looking for wanton waste and spending of taxpayer dollars. In fact, the first meeting that I attended, the library was selling a piece of land for $1 million. I'm a realtor, and I'm sitting there and I'm like, well, hey, that's great, but what is the land worth? The land was worth $1.4 million. I'm sitting at the table with people on the board and the director who are trying to sell taxpayer land way under appraised value. And I fought to stop that transaction so that we could at least sell it at appraised value. Yeah, we also had a conversation about one of our book clubs that was not aligned to our collections. We had a book club that had 6th graders to 12th graders, and we were like, hey, that doesn't make sense. We've got 6th graders reading with 12th graders. Either we're asking these 6th graders to read content that's at a high school level, or we're asking high school seniors to read down on the 6th grade level. Why don't we break this according to our collection? So we are very mindful. I mean, we've sat through meetings where the library is going to buy an RV, some type of vehicle so that they can go around and do different events in the community. We asked that gentleman to travel the state of Indiana and to go to other libraries so that he could find best practices. So we do a whole lot more than just a collection development policy. We oversee the policies of the library, the spending of money, and we're looking for waste and fraud and making sure that taxpayers' interests are being fully represented. So it's a lot more than just books.
Yeah, and this is a good segue to the next question of this $300,000 it was going to cost. Tiffany, it sounds like you made them $400,000. So you ought to be able to do whatever you want with that money. And what are we going to do with the extra 100? Oh, let's buy an RV.
You know what is so funny is that if it had been up to me, we would have competed that land on the market. We would have put a sign in the ground and it would have been out on the public market. But I got into that transaction way too late. And the only thing that I could do was dig in my heels so that we sold it at appraised value. So this is the kind of things that, like, when you're a board member because of your professional experiences and expertise. And if there's something that we don't know and we can't figure out, we'll bring in an expert, we'll bring in legal consult. So, we're not just people who are just angry about books. We are really trying to make sure that the best interests of taxpayers are being taken into account.
Yeah, that's, Micah, that pretty much summed it up as far as that goes. And then also, if you want to circle back around about speaking for the library, because I want everybody to know that this is your personal, it's not speaking for the library board, because I know
this is me as a board member speaking for my own. This is my own personal opinion, whether the board agrees or not. I mean, as a whole, but obviously the majority of the board voted, and it was a 4-3 vote. So there are 3 people on the board that don't think that we should have collection development standards, but I would say for 4 of us, we all agreed that this was a good thing to put in boundaries and standards. And so, again, and it's not banning books. Nobody on the board wants to ban books. I know that unequivocally. So yeah, but I'm speaking for myself as a board member and as a concerned citizen. My children use the library. We've used it for many years, and we love the public library too. And here's what kind of ticks me off a little bit is you get a lot of people on the left saying, well, you don't have to come here. You don't have to bring your kids here, or they just don't have to have that book. It's like, well, why do we have to change? Right? Like, why is it that you're forcing us to change? And so who's right and wrong in this struggle? It's almost like it's this tolerance that they preach. They're not giving this to the other side. And so what I'm saying is, why can't we be tolerant of all views? And those who have an issue with these books, because we've had a lot of people who have come to us and said, we've got issues with these books. So are we supposed to just say, well, sorry, go pound sand. Your viewpoint is not welcome here in the public library, or are we supposed to say, no, we're going to take your viewpoint into consideration? And that's why we're saying, hey, for some of those books that meet that standard of content harmful to minors, we're just going to move those over into the adult section. You can still get the book. A kid can still get the book. And at that point, everybody's happy. They should be happy, but Apparently,
Yeah, you can't.
apparently they're
Let me
not.
say, hey, Tiffany, before you have that thought, I want to stop you for a second because I can see you getting ready to go there. I do appreciate that, but we're going to play. We got a big announcement tonight, and Lucy's still driving her car. She's actually involved in this. And Micah, you're involved in this. So we're going to go ahead and play this, and then we'll talk about it on the other side. It's sort of a big deal. So here you go. All right. Yeah, that's the big news. And Micah was on the Rob Kimball show today and sort of jumped the gun on this. I said it was like putting cooked spaghetti back in the box because they got the date wrong. But I love the enthusiasm. What's that?
I messed it up big time.
That's all right.
Everybody on the left in the chat right now, you'll be happy to know that I am not perfect. So I did make a mistake today on WIBC. So I said the wrong date.
We'll get it straightened out. I think Rob Kendall's chopping at the bit. I think he was wanting to go. But I think it's going to be a big deal. I think a lot of folks are upset about property taxes, and it's going. So Tiffany, I want you to give your thought, and then Lucy's ready to. She's the voice of reason is getting ready to talk. So go ahead.
And here
Tiffany.
I am. And here I am.
You're already here. The voice of reason.
I wanted to share so of course our April meeting was very much centered on this, updating the collection development policy, which we had passed in December. We approved it in December. So that's one of the things to know. But in, I think it was our March meeting, March or February, we had a number of homeschool moms come and talk to us about what they were finding in the library and what they needed. And one of the things that these homeschool moms who depend on the library to help educate their children, what they said was that that our library, the Hamilton East Public Library, was lacking books about character development, about teaching kids how to be good people, how to have good relationships, how to have good self-concept and self-esteem, that there was a significant lack in character building books, and there was nothing that represented anything faith-based, and that the majority of these materials were available online, but not on the shelves. Online, but not on the shelves. So if I tell you that 90% of my collection is 8 years old, and anything that's character building is online and not on the shelves, that should give you a little idea of what this section can look like. I was in the library, I think it was Friday, maybe Wednesday of last week. And I invite anybody who has a library card, anyone who has a Hamilton East Public Library card to come in and peruse the section. I was with the board president and the 2 librarians, and I picked up 10 books and I was just thumbing through them. And I was like, wow, some of this content is not what I expected in the juvenile section. I know that they're doing reviews of content, and because these are not the books that we read as kids. They're not. They are written to hook kids. They are talking to them about different issues that we were not even talking about at those ages. And I know that they can get that information online. But I loved what Micah said about the public zoos. Needing to be a safe place. And I liken it to driving down 116th Street. Certainly, I can drive faster than 25 and faster than 40. But for public safety, we all are supposed to do the speed limit. And the majority of the speed limit on 116th Street is 40 miles per hour. So, think about that in terms of a collection, trying to keep it so that anybody can pick up a book. They're not going to be offended. Certainly, we're not going to squeeze the toothpaste out of the container and try to put it back in. But if people want that kind of content, it's just not going to be in the juvenile area. We have plenty of books. I think there's, oh my God. Micah, do you remember the number of pieces of material in the collection? I want to say there's maybe 300,000 pieces of material in our collection. Yeah, it's a large collection.
Yep.
Yeah, they are acquiring thousands of, probably about 1,500 new materials every month. It's a large budget library. I think it's the second or third largest in the state of Indiana. So there's a lot that's going on there. And if we're not reviewing topics and if we're not reviewing titles that go into the juvenile section before they go on the shelf, then we have a problem. It's not fair. We cannot allow the publishers to decide where our books go because the publishers are in it to sell books.
Okay.
And they don't represent, Central Indiana values. I mean, these publishers are New York, San Francisco, places that it's not Indiana. I mean, we are our community. Let us set our own standards. I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Okay, we got a question here from the audience. We like to get them, the viewers involved here. Do the mayors appoint the library boards in Hamilton County? So how are you all appointed? So they can send the hate mail to them.
Yeah, it's great. Great question. It goes to the principals of every school. I'm just kidding. It doesn't. No.
Is a Pope?
So the way it works is that these governing bodies. So we have the Hamilton County Council appoints 2 members. The Hamilton County Commissioners appoint 2 members. The Noblesville School Board appoints 2 members. And then the Hamilton Southeastern School gets to appoint 1 member. And so that makes up the 7-person board that we have that governs that oversees the governing of the public library.
So were you and Tiffany appointed by the same person?
By the council, the county council.
Okay, county council, by the same group or whatever.
And here's, I want to address something that Mark said earlier too, like it was shady how it went down. It wasn't shady how it goes down. The council can appoint anybody they want to, and there are no rules on how they have to go through that process. They can pick anyone that they want. They opened it up for applications, but it doesn't mean that they had to have it wasn't like I was running for this position. They came to me and they said, "Hey, would you consider being on this board?" And I said, "What? Yeah, I mean, I knew what was going on in the library. I'd already had parents come to me and say, "Do you know that this stuff my kid is stumbling across this type of content?" And so I was well aware of what was happening. And so this had been a long conversation for months prior to me being appointed. But the commissioners, the council, it is not it's not an election. If people think well, you need to have a fair and open election on it. No, that's not how it works. You elect your county councilman fair and openly, and then that gives them the authority to appoint many people to many different boards. They don't just appoint to the Hamilton East Public Library. They also they have multiple boards that they appoint people to, and so they look for the community for the best candidates that they themselves believe are the best candidates. And if you don't like it, well, then you can vote for different county councilmen and different commissioners, and we can you go about the democratic process that way. But people are like, you went about this shady and someone, scratched your back. And it's like, I didn't ask to be on the board. It wasn't like I was jockeying for this position. I'm doing it as a service. I have to give up, countless hours of my month. It's not, and taking all the hate mail from the left. I'm telling you, we've gotten harassed at the church. People have threatened my family and my life because of this. Like, this is the left for you. Like, they're coming after us. It's not like I was, oh yeah, let's go run for this. I don't get paid anything. It's not like we're making any money on this. So all that to say, when people say stupid stuff like what Mark said earlier, like, oh, it was some shady backroom deal, it's like, you have no clue what you're talking about, man. So, but that's the ignorance of guys like Mark and people on the left or the Indy Star. They don't know what they're talking about.
And I would add, for me, I applied for the Hamilton Southeast School Board appointment to the library board. I did my letter and I was denied. I was not what they were looking for. So, I've got my MBA. When I was on active duty, I was responsible for libraries inside the United States and then also in the Azores, and when I was in the desert for 6 months. So I actually do have some high-level library experience, but it wasn't what the Hamilton Southeastern School Board wanted. And then when they advertised the appointment for the county council, I applied for that too. So, it's not like, I just found a spot. I applied like everybody else. I was denied by one group and accepted by another.
So I believe we have Lucy. I'm not sure, but if I see her mute, we have Lucy. Lucy?
I've got 3 bars, and the squirrels are working really hard so that I can talk.
Well, I'll have a gin and tonic. Oh, not those kind of bars?
No, not those kind of bars. First of all, I want to express my gratitude for Micah and Tiffany for standing up for our children. This is a war for the hearts and minds of the children, and I am horrified and dismayed that we have 3 adults in Hamilton County sitting on that library board who, I've got to be honest with you, if any of them handed a book to my child that had the kind of content that Micah described, which made me want to vomit, then I would only conclude that the goal of that person giving that information to my child was to groom them and disrupt their sexual development so that it would not be normal. And I'm just very dismayed about that. And I know that it takes a lot of guts, and it's you're taking a lot of heat for your stances here. So thank you. As somebody that used to hold a Hamilton County Public Library board, a library card, and I had multiple homes in Hamilton County that I paid taxes on, that I both lived in and were rentals. Thank you. Thank you from my deepest part of my heart for trying to protect children from these groomers.
And thanks for saying that, Lucy. I appreciate that.
Was there a I love saying this, Micah. Lucy, was there a question in there?
Yeah, my question in there is, where do I access the name, the voting record, so that I know who to keep my children away from?
Ooh, yeah. I mean, woo. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, and so you can come to the library board meetings. We meet the last Thursday of the month. We don't record up until 2025. There's a new law that's going to go into place where all public board meetings will have to be recorded for the public to see. The library board does not record the public. It's not like a council meeting or where you can jump online and watch from online and see that. So, but starting in 2025, you'll be able to see that, because I'm pretty sure, Tiffany, isn't that right? Wasn't that?
Yep, that's what they said.
Yeah. So,
to Micah's point, for the safety of our board, and we'll get to that in a little bit, I hope, we are going to definitely record our meetings
going forward.
Yeah, that's
important. And John, I'll just add to that too, because Tiffany got assaulted, verbally assaulted at the last board meeting. I mean, thankfully for the guy, the police stepped in, because I think Tiffany and her army training was going to come out. And that guy probably would have ended up dead if he kept running his mouth. But yeah, I mean, he started cussing at Tiffany as she was walking out. And F you fascist book burner. The police came over. He called them effing pigs. I mean, this is the left for you. I'm just gonna say, like, they're crazy when it comes to this kind of stuff. And I wish it weren't so. This is not a battle that Tiffany or I asked for, but I'm just saying, like, that's what we're up against. And so, there are, and I mean, again, we've gotten harassed at our church. People are, publicly, vilifying me and even going onto our Facebook page as a church and finding random people on there and harassing them randomly because of what's going on in the library right now. This is how crazy they are. And so rational people look at this and say, okay, this isn't right.
I want to jump in here, and this is a question for both Micah and Tiffany, and John, you can answer as well. The question in my mind is, why is it so important to these people to put sexual content that is disgusting, as Micah, thank you for, being graphic about it, because it's important that we demonstrate how horrible this is. Why is it so important to these particular people that they have access to putting that information in front of my children? What is their agenda? And why are they trying to put that in front of my children?
Well, Lucy, being a pastor, I try to look at things through the spiritual lens too. And I can honestly, the only explanation I have, because I don't think there is a good rational explanation. The only explanation I can say is it's straight demonic. It is warping the things of God. It is making that which is sacred and defiling it, and then taking that which has been defiled and turning it into, quote unquote, the sacred. And I that's the only explanation I can have, because it is so vile. And I have excerpts from books right now pulled up. If you wanted me to read some more, I could, like, literally from some books. It's going to be gross. Okay. It's going to be gross. I got a bunch of them right here. But all that to say, I think that's what it is. I think we're fighting a spiritual battle, and people who just, and listen, I know some of these people on the left, and there are some, like, I saw Mary Jensen. She commented earlier. I like Mary. I think she's a very nice person. We've had some great conversations, but I do think that there is just a blindness, whether it's ignorant blindness or whether it's malicious blindness. I don't know, but I think in the case like Mary, I just say, Mary, I disagree with you on this, and she disagrees with me, and that's fine. We can have a civil conversation, but there's a lot of people who are who are not like that. They really want to destroy anyone who does not think like they think. And I think we're seeing it.
And-
So yeah.
Here you go. I'm going to put this up there. This is Marsha Jackson apparently doesn't like you because I've seen a couple of comments.
It's shocking.
And
I'd like to put another contrast in here, which is what is acceptable to the left for books and behavior at school and what is not. And here we have a situation where they're literally trying to put graphic sexual content, the kind of things that I don't even read or consume as an adult. And I've had 10 children, and I would not be reading that kind of stuff because it's disgusting. But furthermore, these are the same people that would fight against my children being able to learn basic firearm safety in school or to have access to that at the library.
That's right. It defies common sense. I don't know, Lucy. I wish I did. Tiffany, you jump in. I don't know.
So I was just going to say, as we were working on the collection development policy, my motion light keeps going off. One of the things that we wanted to include was that the collection was balanced, that we used balanced sources for reviewing content, balanced sources for publishers, and that was really, really difficult. You guys all know that I'm not a conspiracy theorist. That's not me. But I think if you just stood back and kind of, just took the temperature, you would see that there are some different things that are going on. And if we as adults, as parents, as, educated people, if we keep our heads in the sand, 5, 10, 20 years, we will not recognize adults or society, just the idea of, like dressing in public. One of the things I think at the school board is whether or not kids can wear pajama pants to school. Really, let's encourage children to, get up, get washed, have some hygiene, and put on some clothes and come to school to learn. And, they're just things that we're going to lose control over. And they're just things that are important for safety. And I loved what Lucy said about child development and their brains and putting that kind of material in their hands at the wrong time. Because, I'm not a child development expert, but I think that this really goes astray from what children are usually doing. We're not putting this kind of content in front of them.
Yeah, this is such a hot topic. We have quite a bit, and generally we have a good variety of opinions here, and some of them have also, you've probably seen at your library board meeting. I'm sure there's some of the names in the column over here, and that's what I like about the show. We welcome everyone's opinion, and like Micah said with was it Mary Jensen? We don't have to we don't have to agree, but we can't be so hateful to each other. I see a comment up here that about it's funny, for many years the board members didn't need protection. Well, I'm going to tell you what, because you did what you wanted and nobody knew about it. And then COVID comes along and people start going, I don't think this is right. And now all of a sudden you got this clash of the Titans. This isn't just something that happened overnight. This is something that's come in about the same time you talked about, Tiffany, with the books being about 8 years old. That's, if you could trace that timeline back, that's when you could see this creep of more and more coming in. Now, here we are, whether it's right, whether it's wrong, whether you want your kid to look at it. That's why we're having this major discussion. And to me, it's crazy. I was a kid. We played football, basketball, and baseball in the light. I never went to the library, and that's probably obvious by my hosting skills here on this show. But it's crazy about how people have just gotten so emotional about this issue, and it's just very. And it's a lot of it across the board. It's not just our books. It's as Micah said. I think it's a spiritual battle between the discipline. Discipline's the key word, and then you have the do what you want crowd, and it's okay. It's liberal. So
can I address something too? And I know we've brought up Mary Jensen a couple times, and again, I like Mary, but she commented. She said nobody needs you to save anyone's children but your own. And I want to say, yes, we're not trying to save other people's kids, but we are trying to protect the children of parents who have come to us and said, do our voices matter too? do, like, we don't want our kids, like Lucy was saying, we don't want our kids to stumble across this. So we're not trying to save Mary. We're not trying to save your kids. We're not trying to be the parents of those on the left. But don't the parents on the right, don't they deserve to have a safe place too? That's all we're saying. Is why is it that they can't have a safe environment for their kids in the library, in the teen and the children's section? Because then we'll get the argument and say, well, parents should just be looking over their shoulders. Like, parents should know what books their kids are grabbing off the shelf. Do you have a 6-year-old? Have you ever tried to follow a 6-year-old around a library? He gone. Like, the moment he walks into that kids section, you ain't keeping up with the 6-year-old because they are lightning fast. And so if I now let my 6-year-old go running to the library in the children's section, do I have to fear that he might come across the book like what we said earlier, that just happens to say, hey, go online and talk to sexual kinks and fantasies with strangers? Do I have to worry about that? I shouldn't have to. I shouldn't have to as a parent. And doesn't my opinion matter too? And I know there's a lot of conservatives in Hamilton County. Don't their opinions matter too? That's all we're saying. We're not trying to save anyone's children. We're just saying we want a safe place too. Can't we have an inclusive environment?
Do you think that this is, I mean, I don't remember as a kid requesting this or that. Do you think this is more of an adult thing that's like, hey, they think like an adult and not like a kid? I mean, when I was a kid, I wanted to go out and play. I wanted to do this. I wasn't thinking about my sexual orientation or where. Well, we were probably, back in my day, we had to look at the National Geographic to see the jungle women without tops. That was our version of porn back in the 70s. But, we look for it if somebody would say, oh, look at this magazine, it's the good, and then we all flock to it. So I just wonder if kids, like you said, a 6-year-old goes right to this material. I think kids, if they see or hear or whatever, they're like, read this book. So what's wrong with keeping kids innocent as long as we can keep them innocent? Because this world's going to teach them bad things when they get to be 18, right?
Yeah, that's right.
And, John, to your point, along this journey, before we got to moving this content to the adult section, we, as a board, we gave staff opportunities. Other libraries have children's sections. I'm sorry, they have parent sections, they have material in other places. And this was not our first attempt at a solution. Just know that we tried other routes of identifying content, of trying to protect the collection so that this juvenile area could have some boundaries. So this was not our first solution. We tried some other stuff first.
I got another question for you about the librarians. You hear, you're not a librarian. You're not. How you get along with the librarians? Is this something are you guys fighting, or is this something that's an issue, or is it pretty much we're working together? What's your?
I would say we're working together, because this is just what it's like. If you look at our agenda, it's just one thing on an agenda of like 10 or 12 different things. It's not everything. It's not everything that we're doing. We're doing so many other things. They're like I said, they're bringing in 1,500 pieces of material into the collection every month. They're constantly weeding it. They're doing different programs. They have a presence all over our library area. They do a lot of things in the community. This is not everything. And I would say that we have a pretty good relationship with our librarians. I certainly respect them as professionals. They do a lot of great stuff. They have a lot of fans.
Yeah, they're good. I mean, I would say outside of this one issue, I don't know where we disagree with them very often. I mean, they do a good job of running the library. It's a clean, exciting place to be. It's literally just saying, hey guys, like, can we just make sure that, content harmful to minors doesn't fall into their hands? That's all we're asking for. I mean, seems like a pretty easy compromise. But to Tiffany's point, I mean, as a board, we respect them. We honor them. It's just saying, hey, we also want to make sure that we have standards for the teens and kids section.
Yeah. Okay. And to Micah's point is the last thing, is that if they would have had if based on the request for reconsideration and all of the requests from the right, if the library had come up with their own policy, we would have supported them. Like any type of self-policing, self-monitoring, self-review of content, we would not be in this space right now. But it really is because so many parents, so many voices were not heard. And whenever, like that Michael talked about that book, when those things were brought up for reconsideration, they were always rejected. So
in that one book too, that we were talking about specifically, that was the fuse that kind of lit this this collection development policy to be. It was eventually moved after parents fought it. It didn't get out the first time, and then more parents fought it, and then it finally got moved out. But it got moved out on a technicality. It wasn't even because the librarians and the staff thought it was inappropriate. It was literally a technicality that moved it to the adult section. And so that to me is kind of like, guys, like if we can't agree that content telling children to go online and talk to sex with strangers is a bad thing, then we're going to have to come in as a board and put something in place so that this doesn't hurt a teenager down the road. I mean,
because no one's reviewing the books. No one's reviewing the books. These books come from the box to the shelf.
Yeah.
And nobody
based
looks
on
at
what
it.
publisher said. And to his point, that book that started all this, the publisher said it belonged in that section.
Yeah.
Publishers aren't parents.
So I have another question. We just recently had a bill, I think it was 1447 or 49 that made it that stripped the protection of the librarians. Now, are your librarians worried about that? I mean, really, it's just basically a process. They should feel safer because now there's a process, and it's a difficult process to get somebody in trouble. So how do your librarians feel about that?
That's only public schools. That doesn't apply to public libraries.
Oh, it didn't. Oh, yeah, it didn't go through there. So.
But to your point about how this touches other things, Hamilton East Public Library is probably the first library in the nation to take this on, reviewing their collection. And at the end of this, based on the standards that our legal counsel gave us, we will have a list of books for other libraries to look at, to consider, to benchmark against. There's a price tag on this project. I trust that the librarian is doing this as efficiently and as cost effectively as possible. But at the end of this investment, we will have a list of books that, maybe people should consider buying with their own personal money, or maybe there are things that people should look for in the adult section of the library. Maybe we'll make it easier for another library to refine and to weed their collection. So I'm excited about that part of it.
I want to jump in real fast because I've been going in and out, and I want to address Mary specifically, because Mary specifically said that it is not my right or my place to save other people's children. And I'd like to point out the hypocrisy of the left, because there are people that have called for the removal of my parental rights because I decline to use an experimental medical product with my children. So you think it's perfectly fine to kidnap my children out of my home in the middle of the night? People have called for this, and for them to be force injected with an experimental medical drug. And that's just one thing. Because I'm a gun owner and other gun owners, you'll literally have people on the left calling for the removal of children out of a home where there's a gun because they want to save the children. The refrain of the left is, we have to save the children. It's for the children. Until it becomes exposed that their agenda is not actually to save the children. Their agenda is to create vulnerable population who should not be sexualized because the hormones have not even hit their body yet. They're not thinking about this on a biological standpoint, but make these children vulnerable so that they start to question their sexuality. And the end goal, of course, transhumanism. First, we mutilate their genitals. They're $1 million price tag. Every child who is questioning their sexuality to the point where they want to get their genitals cut off is $1 million. That target is big on our kids' backs, and I will not let it happen on my watch. Thank you, Micah and Tiffany and John, for joining me in that.
Yeah, well, and I think that there's big money in the hormones, because once you get on the hormones to stay that other gender, you're going to buy it. Now, we're picking on Mary here, and I don't want to pick on Mary.
I love Mary. Mary, I know you're listening. I think I really do like you a lot, and I appreciate your conversation, and thank you for being on today. I just want to say that, Mary is one of the, I think the people on the left that I feel like whenever I'm around her, we can have a very nice, cordial conversation. So
yeah, and
we are reasonable people.
I'm going to address what she says in that comment right there, where she invokes what she thinks is a trump card, which is education. I am sorry. Education does not make you more moral. Having a degree in biology or a master's in economics or a degree in library science does not make you a moral person. It means that you are a person who is committed to repeating what you are told and to repeating it so well that someone will decree, I'm going to give you this MBA because you're the best repeater. And if you're not repeating what you're taught, then you're not given the degree that you seek. And there is another round robin here of feedback in terms of economics, right? Why do people go and get a degree in whatever? It's because they believe that their earning power is going to be more. So the academic gatekeeping is such that, if I want to go get a degree in economics, I'm an Austrian economist, but there's very few Austrian economic degrees that I can get. Everything is Keynesian. So I can go get that degree in economics, but it does not mean that I actually know anything about economics. Because if anybody actually knew anything about economics, they would be Austrians. They wouldn't be Keynesians.
Wait a second, Lucy. I want to hear you say taxation is theft one time tonight.
Okay, can I tell you?
He doesn't believe that.
Okay, so I was out buying stuff today at the hardware store and I couldn't find my kid. I yelled taxation. She yells back is theft. We don't do Marco Polo in my household.
I love it.
Taxation.
Lucy, you're my new favorite person. That's amazing.
That's great.
That is great. That is great.
Well,
so
and I want to say too, can I say this as well, just to when Mary's comment there, why do you feel like you're better qualified than those with master's degrees in library science? Listen, we've heard for the last 2.5 years, do this because the experts say, right? Like, get this drug, this experimental drug because the experts say, wear a mask because the experts say, close down your schools because the experts say. I'm pretty sure most Americans listen to that argument and say, well, the experts say it. Anytime someone starts with that, I basically roll my eyes and say, I'm not starting there. I don't care who thinks you're an expert. I don't care why you believe you're an expert. You need to prove to me that this is the right course forward, or else I'm not going to listen to you. So the experts, I think that's out the window. I think we've seen the last 2.5 years that's been abused. The Dr. Fauci's of the world have abused. I am science, Mr. I am science. Don't question me. So
I'm the expert on my child. I'm the expert on my family. Trump that.
Amen.
Yeah. So, we were picking on Mary a little bit there, and I was going to say I could send her a link to the show. She could pop right on here and ask these questions. But, this is the kind of debate we want to have. I wish she was on our show because, she could be talking back and not have to type in here. We got to read it and then all that. But it's interesting. But that's what we like to do on the show is keep our viewers engaged. And that's what we do. So let's see. I just wonder if I was running out of questions or not. But, there was a question earlier. If you both have library cards or you just sneak in on your credentials. I mean, they're trying to get you for anything, any misgiving.
Right? Do you definitely have a library card? What was interesting is I went through a career change in February, March of 2020. And I went to the library and I left out of there with a bag of books. I probably had 20 books. And thank God, because 30 days later, the pandemic started and everything shut down. And I had a bag full of library books to read and to guide me through that time. So yes, I'm a card holder. Yeah. Love that.
We check out books probably every other weekend. It feels like we're at the library checking out books for the kids. I mean, I probably don't use it personally enough for me as much as I should, but man, the kids do love it. I mean, and listen, they've got a great children's area. I mean, the environment is good. I mean, it's not, we want people to know, like, use the Hamilton East Public Library. It is a good library. We just want to make sure that the standards of moral decency are in place so that, kids don't run into something that's going to hurt them.
Can I jump in again? Because I might have missed this and you might have already discussed it, but the library is unique in that it is a collection of written material that is paid for by the public, and the library is supposed to operate in the best interests of the public. So do we really believe that citizens of Hamilton County really believe that it's in the best public interest to serve up pornography to children?
Great question.
Some do. Some
Yeah.
do. I mean, what another question I have is, has library card business gone up, down, or stayed the same since you guys have been on the board?
It's actually gone up.
Oh, there you go. I mean, is that because they want to see the train wreck, the cat fight, the dog fight, the frog fight? What is?
Well, actually, with it being springtime, I don't know if our viewers know this, but our Hamilton East Public Library, we actually have a seed library. So you can go in and get seeds for flowers and different things for your garden. So it is that time of year for people to come in and get some seeds.
Yeah, Lucy's all over that. She knows all about the seeds.
I wish that I were a Hamilton County resident so that I could do that. I would
come up there and plant a few seeds. Well, and and back to Mary's question, what it was about, this seems to be one-sided. Well, really this show is because of the one-sided Star article. So Mary, I'm sorry that we don't have a opposing viewpoint on here tonight. I really just want our opposing viewpoint was the Star article that I thought when I read it, I was a little bit disappointed that they didn't really talk about some things. And the $300,000, I read that. I'm like, you got people working. They're not. So it just seemed like they were distorting some facts. So that's what we're doing.
I stand by my librarian. If this is the most cost-effective way to get it done and operationally, I stand by that. But I invite anybody, if you've got a library card, just go to the section, pull 10 books off the shelf randomly, and just thumb through them.
How many can you check out? What's the limit?
Actually, I think it's maybe a 20 or a 30 book limit. Oftentimes kids will get like, if they're into like some of those graphic novels, they'll get like all 20 of them. They'll get the whole series and they can take them out and so that they can read them. So like they can binge read. And so you can get several books at one time. There's nothing worse than you're reading something in a series and all of a sudden you're on book 7 and you can't get 8 and 9, but you've got 10 through 12. So that's one of the things. Our library is just very, very generous with allowing people to check out materials.
Hey,
that's cool.
One of the things that we have the power of is the power of economics and the ability to boycott. So I would be interested if, we looked at what are the books that were problematic, the books that had to be moved because they had disgusting, nasty things. Those publishers got rewarded because the libraries bought those books. Money went into their pocket. So I would be interested in knowing who those publishers are so that I could cross-check and make sure that the next time I buy a book that I'm not buying one that's by those publishers.
Hopefully we'll have a list for you. So I think they've gotten through about 1,500 of the 11,000 titles. So hopefully we'll have a list for you very soon.
And I'll say this too, just so everyone knows, because initially they were trying to stop us to say it was a First Amendment rights violation when we were moving books from one section to the other, which it's not at all. It's not even close. But we were studying this. You can reject any book you want to come into the library. So the librarians have the authority to say, we don't want this book in our library. And they don't have to order a book if they don't deem necessary. And so what they'll, one of the things that has been thrown out is like, why is Hamilton County dealing with this when like Cicero, Hamilton Heights or the northern part of Hamilton County is, well, the librarians have a lot of discretion what comes into their library in the first place. There's nothing against someone's constitutional right to say we're just not going to buy something. But once it's in the library, then there's case law in the Supreme Court that basically has said you cannot remove it from the library because that would be a violation of First Amendment rights, free speech rights. And so this is kind of where how do we? I just want people to think about this. I don't walk through our library and thank God I don't see KKK for children propaganda. I would not want to see that in our children's library, but somehow somebody has made the moral decision that it's not right to have books like that in the library because those books do exist. I mean, they are out there. So how do we not have those in the kids section? I'm glad we don't, but somebody has made a moral decision to say that's not a good book for our kids and our teens. So we do have the ability as a community to say, yes, this should be in our teen section or in our kids section. No, this shouldn't be. Now, Do we get rid of books on, you know, the KKK and the Holocaust and things like that in the adult section? Absolutely not. We need to teach on history. We want all of history, not just the whitewash version of history. We want all of it, good, bad, and the ugly. But we do have standards. And so you can walk through our children's section and thank the Lord, we're not going to find crap like, you know, KKK propaganda or crap like Nazi propaganda. But somebody has made a moral decision to say it's not good for that to be in our library. And that's been the librarian. So that's, I just want to put that out there. We already have standards. There's somebody making some moral decision, moral standard decision somewhere. So we just, you know, as we go down this path, what we're just trying to say is we're trying to give some credence and some legs to those standards so that there's not any gray areas or nuance, at least like there was in the past.
Okay, here Willie's got a question here. How about the Book of Common Sense? Do you carry that one? That's
great.
Sometimes that's I think all of us could read that at some point.
Well, we've said that actually, Will. That's a great point. We've actually said that in the meeting. One of our board members, Ray Madelone, will say often. He said, "Why can't we just use common sense?" And the moment he says that, there's always pushback. Well, common sense to one person is not common sense to another person. And again, it's just
common.
It's not common anymore. And that's, you know, so we're trying to put some standards in place so we don't have to rely on one person's judgment over another person's. We can just say collectively, these are the standards.
Yeah. Well, we're getting towards the end of the show. We are not going to do conspiracy theory tonight because Tiffany doesn't do it, and Lucy, you can't see her, and I can sum hers up. Bill Gates taxed everybody because he wanted to steal their money. That's pretty much her conspiracy. And,
food supply, and everybody should have a garden.
No,
yeah.
No. My conspiracy would be that Bill Gates, who is a frequent flyer on the Epstein Island Express, would absolutely champion and fund and push these very books because he wants to make sure that he's got people to abuse. And I could use stronger words than that, but I'm going to hold off.
I'm glad you brought that up because literally today we just found out that one of the book vetting sources, what do you call it, Tiffany? One of the tools,
right. Yeah.
The tools that we use to vet the appropriateness of a children's book or a teen book in our section is owned by Bill Gates. So we're using two right now as a library, and one of them is owned by Bill Gates himself. So Lucy, to your point,
it is Bill Gates, and I'd like to point out to Mary that Bill Gates never graduated from college, so we should completely ignore him because he lacks the proper credentials.
Yeah, he's not a librarian master's or whatever. Before we go, I do have to promo our new crime show that we have, the true crime. Well, it's not that new, but it's called Forensic Foreplay. And I don't know what's up in the water up in your area, but it seems like the northeast side of Indianapolis has gone crazy because we have this person called Megan Stoner that's all over the place up there. And we had a guest on last week that we talked about it. So we're going to be doing these shows on Friday night till we, to get some guests. But I'm going to play the preview for the show coming up this Friday. And I'm going to tell you what, it's quite popular. This true crime stuff is quite popular. I don't know why people really find it so interesting, but there's a huge audience. So I'm going to go ahead and play this promo. We're going to come back, one last round of comments, questions, whatever, and then we're going to wind it up. So here you go. Enjoy this little promo. So yeah, Victoria was one of the persons that's actually named in the suit. So it's just it's a wild thing. You tune in. I'm amazed by it, and I'm the co-host on that. And Dee Dee she's from Texas, and she's all into this true crime. So if I can keep her from dropping F-bombs on the show, I've done my job. So she's gets into it. Let's say that. So let's go ahead and wind this up. And I'm going to give Tiffany the last word. Micah, you first. And Lucy, if you want to jump in on the last word, then you can. So go ahead.
Well, last word. I wasn't really prepared for the last word, but I would just say our word is listen. This is people will say we are so divided as a nation, and yes, I think there is a lot of division in our nation. But let's put it in perspective. I mean, we did fight a civil war. I don't think we are as divided as maybe some people think. I actually got a phone call from a guy the other day. He got my private number. He called me, started yelling at me, because he said, I'm banning books, right? He's like, you the guy banning books. And so we had about a 15 to 20-minute conversation. By the end of that conversation, just because of civil discourse, now it was passionate at times, but by the end of the conversation, he literally said, well, you're right. I guess we probably agree about 80 or 90% of the issues. And so you had this guy who thought we were just so divided, and we got about 15 minutes to talk. And then we both kind of came to this conclusion. It's like, you know what? We probably agree on a lot more than we disagree on. And hey, have a great day. Let's grab coffee sometime. And so it was just a good reminder that, hey, we can all take a chill pill and just take a breath. Let's have it, like, defend your side. Sure. Defend your argument. But at the end of the day, we probably agree on a lot more than we disagree on.
Yeah, here you go. Your friend Mary, big shout out to me. Did you shout that out? So
yes, big shout out to Mary. Absolutely.
All right, Tiffany. What's your last word? I mean, not your last word, but on this part of the show.
Well, John, I want to thank you for giving us this opportunity to have this conversation. I've seen things in the Indy Star. I've seen things in the news. I've seen things on Facebook. And this is the first time that I've spoken publicly about this. There are a lot of keyboard warriors out there who are very bold. But I'm glad that I had this opportunity to really talk things through. And I hope people understand that this is not the collection that they grew up with, and that they should, if they really, really have an issue, they should really just go to the library and peruse the section. So thank you for letting us have this conversation. Very, very
do you see that one, Mike?
I saw that one. That's
you guys are a danger to democracy.
Hey, Michael, we don't have a democracy. We have a republic. That's your first problem right there. You don't even know what type of government we actually have.
Michael could vote you guys out because you're representative.
A democracy is two wolves and a sheep deciding what's for dinner.
Exactly. Ben Franklin right there.
So Lucy, you got the last word. So go ahead.
Word to your mother.
Word to your mother.
That's your last word. No more.
I thought she was just getting ready to say something really profound and deep, but that was
then
the last
Bill Gates
word.
Shut her down, or Spirit Airlines, one of the two. So Lucy, give us the last word. Give us something here to go out on.
It is our divine right and responsibility to protect the innocence of children, no matter what the spoken intentions of a group of people. It is incumbent upon us as adults to see through the rhetoric, to see through the lies, and in spite of their attempt to bully and shame us while we protect children, we have to stand up to them and protect them anyway.
Yay!
And that's why we have Lucy do the last word. So Micah, stick around afterwards. I'm going to go ahead and wind this show up, and then we'll have a little debrief after this, and we'll see y'all next week. We may have something on guns next week after this. I mean, come on, just keep the ball rolling. You know what I'm saying? So okay. Hey, thanks, Micah, for coming in, and Tiffany. It's great to see you back. And don't be strangers. I mean, don't be a stranger, Micah.
Don't be strange.
Whatever.
I'll be strange, but I won't be a stranger.
Okay. All right. Everybody, see ya. Peace out.
Yeah!